What if Nikola Tesla, the man who helped illuminate the modern world, looked at the Bible and saw not only scripture, but a hidden language of energy, frequency, vibration, and laws of nature that humanity had never fully decoded? What if the miracles described around Jesus were not, in Tesla's imagination, violations of the natural world, but signs of a deeper science, a science so subtle and so far beyond its age that ordinary language could only call it divine? This is not a claim that Tesla proved the secrets of the Bible. It is not a declaration that ancient miracles can be reduced to machines, wires, or formulas. The mystery is stranger than that. Tesla belonged to that rare class of minds that refused to divide the universe into separate rooms. For him, electricity was not merely a current moving through copper. Magnetism was not merely a force measured by instruments. Vibration was not merely a physical motion. These were clues, visible traces of invisible laws. And if those laws governed the stars, the atmosphere, the human body, and the earth itself, then perhaps they also cast a shadow across the ancient stories humanity has preserved for thousands of years. To most people, the Bible is a sacred text, a moral guide, a spiritual inheritance. But according to this Tesla-inspired interpretation, it may also contain something else, symbolic memories of forces, energies, and natural principles that earlier civilizations expressed through myth, miracle, and revelation. And at the center of this mystery stands Jesus. Was Jesus in this interpretation only a religious figure, or did Tesla see him as something more difficult to define, a master of harmony, a being whose teachings about love, forgiveness, compassion, and faith might reflect not only moral truth, but also the hidden architecture of reality itself? Tesla never asked humanity to abandon wonder. He asked us to look more deeply into it. Because the question is not whether science should destroy the sacred. The question is whether the sacred was always trying to teach us science in a language we had forgotten how to read. And this is where the forgotten notebook opens. Nikola Tesla was one of the most extraordinary inventors in human history, a man whose name is now almost inseparable from lightning, alternating current, wireless power, invisible waves, magnetic fields, and the strange promise of a future that arrived decades after he first imagined it. He was born on the 10th of July, 1856, in Smiljan, a village that at the time belonged to the Austrian Empire and is today part of Croatia. He was born into a Serbian family, under dark skies that, according to legend, were split by thunder and lightning on the night of his arrival. Whether that detail is poetic exaggeration or not, it feels almost too perfect. Tesla would spend his life listening to the hidden thunder of the universe. His father was a learned Orthodox priest, a man of language, memory, discipline, and faith. His mother, though not formally educated in the modern academic sense, possessed a remarkable talent for invention. She built tools and devices for household use with her own hands. In Tesla's life, these two forces, the spiritual imagination of his father and the practical inventiveness of his mother, formed a kind of internal circuit. One side reached upward, toward meaning, the other side reached outward, toward mechanism, and somewhere between them, Tesla began to see the world not as a collection of dead objects, but as a living system of energy. As a child, he was intensely curious. He observed insects, animals, running water, storms, mechanical devices, and distant stars with the same almost supernatural concentration. His mind did not rest. It moved from the smallest creature to the vast machinery of the cosmos, always searching for a pattern, a hidden symmetry, a law beneath appearances. By the 1870s, Tesla had studied engineering and physics, but theory alone could not contain him. He needed experiment. He needed machinery. He needed sparks, coils, rotating fields, motors, oscillations, and the roar of real power. Electricity was not an abstract idea to him. It was a living language. And unlike many engineers of his time, Tesla did not stop at wires, generators, and circuits. He saw electricity as the signature of something much greater. He imagined a world connected by invisible forces, wireless communication, renewable energy, remote transmission, global networks, and technologies that would later seem prophetic. He anticipated possibilities that others could barely name. He imagined communication without wires. He dreamed of power drawn from nature without exhausting it. He speculated about forces traveling through the earth and atmosphere. He pursued a future where humanity might no longer be chained to coal, distance, or scarcity. To his admirers, Tesla seemed like a man with one foot in the laboratory and the other in the future. But the deeper mystery is this. Tesla's vision did not stop at technology. Behind the machines, he searched for the meaning of energy itself. Tesla was fascinated by the invisible, This is the first key to understanding why his name becomes linked, again and again, with mysteries far beyond ordinary engineering. For most inventors, electricity was a tool. For Tesla, it was a doorway. It revealed that the world was not as solid, silent, or separate as it appeared. Everything was in motion, everything vibrated, everything exchanged energy with everything else. The universe to Tesla was not dead matter drifting through empty space. It was closer to an immense electrical organism filled with pulses, waves, fields, pressure, resonance, attraction, repulsion, and transformation. He became deeply interested in the old concept of ether, sometimes spelled ether, a hypothetical invisible medium that many earlier thinkers believed filled the universe and carried light, energy, and motion. Modern physics would eventually move away from that classical ether model, but in Tesla's era, it remained one of the great mysteries of science. To Tesla, the ether was not merely a technical idea, it was almost a cosmic ocean. He imagined that behind the physical world there might exist a subtle field of energy, a hidden sea connecting all things. If one could understand this field, perhaps humanity could draw power from it. Perhaps energy could be transmitted without wires. Perhaps the Earth itself could become part of a vast electrical system. Perhaps space was not empty at all but filled with potential. This is where Tesla's scientific curiosity began to resemble a spiritual quest. He did not necessarily see science and spirituality as enemies. He saw them as two different instruments pointed toward the same unknown reality. Science measured, spirituality interpreted, science tested. Spirituality gave meaning. One looked through the lens of experiment, the other through the lens of inner experience. But both at their highest level asked the same question: what is the universe really made of? Tesla suspected that the answer was not merely matter, it was energy, it was vibration, it was frequency, it was order hidden beneath chaos. In this way, his imagination brought him close to ancient traditions that spoke of a life force, a divine breath, a cosmic light, or a subtle energy passing through all beings. Tesla did not need to accept every religious doctrine to recognize that many cultures, across time, seemed to be pointing toward a similar intuition. That visible reality is only the surface of something deeper, and if that was true, then perhaps the old sacred texts were not just moral stories. Perhaps they were coded maps. When Tesla looked at the Bible, according to this interpretation, he did not see only impossible stories from a vanished age. He saw patterns, he saw symbols, he saw descriptions that might be read not as childish superstition, but as ancient attempts to describe forces not yet understood. To most people, a miracle is a suspension of natural law. But Tesla's mind moved differently. He may have imagined that what humans call miracle could sometimes be an unknown application of law, something that appears supernatural only because the observer does not yet understand the mechanism. This is an important distinction. A magnet lifting metal would have seemed magical to someone who had never seen magnetism. A radio signal passing through the air would have seemed like sorcery to a civilization without receivers. A voice traveling across an ocean would have seemed like the work of spirits to anyone who did not understand electromagnetic waves. To Tesla, the unknown was not necessarily the unreal. It was the undiscovered. And so, when he considered stories of healing, transformation, water, light, bread, storms, and resurrection, he did not simply dismiss them. He wondered whether they might contain fragments of a deeper knowledge expressed in symbolic form. This does not mean he proved that biblical miracles were scientific experiments. That would go far beyond the evidence. But within this Tesla-inspired worldview, the possibility itself becomes fascinating. What if ancient people witnessed phenomena they could not explain, and preserved those events in the only language available to them? What if spiritual language became the container for lost observations of nature? What if the Bible, like other ancient texts, is not only a book of belief, but also a record of humanity's encounter with forces that still remain mysterious? And then comes the most provocative idea. What if Jesus, in this interpretation, was not seen merely as someone who broke the laws of nature, but as someone who understood them at a level so profound that ordinary people could only call his actions miracles? Tesla was a man of energy, and therefore, in this interpretation, he may have looked at Jesus through the lens of energy. When the Bible describes Jesus healing the sick, restoring sight, calming the terrified, and transforming the broken, Tesla's imagination could have turned toward the possibility of vibration, resonance, and the human body as an electrical organism. Today, modern science recognizes that the human body operates through electrical signals. The heart produces measurable electromagnetic activity. The brain communicates through electrical impulses. Nerves transmit signals. Cells respond to chemical and electrical gradients. Life itself, at a biological level, is inseparable from energy transfer. Tesla did not have access to all the instruments and medical knowledge of our time, but he understood something fundamental. Living systems are dynamic systems. They are not inert matter. They pulse, conduct, vibrate, and respond. From this perspective, healing becomes more mysterious. Not because medicine disappears, but because the body is more than a mechanical object. It is an organized field of processes, chemical, electrical, emotional, neurological, and perhaps still more subtle than we fully understand. According to this interpretation, Tesla may have imagined that Jesus possessed an extraordinary understanding of harmony within the human system. A sick body could be seen as a body out of balance. A suffering mind could be seen as a disturbed frequency. A wounded spirit could be seen as a broken resonance between the individual and the greater order of life. Again, this is not a proven scientific explanation of biblical healing. It is a speculative reading, but it is powerful because it connects two worlds that are usually kept apart. In one world, Jesus heals through divine compassion. In the other, the body responds to energy, emotion, belief, and alignment. Tesla's genius was not that he erased one world with the other. It was that he suspected they might be connected. He believed invisible forces could produce visible effects. He had seen it in coils, currents, motors, and magnetic fields. Why, then, could emotion, faith, intention, or compassion not also operate through subtle laws we have not fully understood? The mystery deepens when we consider one of Tesla's most important ideas: resonance. Resonance is one of the great hidden principles of the universe. It is simple enough for a child to observe, yet deep enough to shake bridges, tune radios, generate music, and explain why certain frequencies can amplify energy far beyond what seems possible. When one system vibrates at the right frequency, it can cause another system to vibrate with it. A singer can shatter glass by matching its resonant frequency. A radio receiver can isolate one signal from a sea of invisible transmissions. A properly tuned circuit can draw power from oscillation. Tesla understood resonance not merely as a scientific curiosity, but as a key to power. He built devices that used vibration, frequency, alternating currents, and oscillating fields. He imagined the Earth itself might be made to resonate electrically. His great dream of wireless transmission depended on the idea that energy could be sent through natural systems if the proper principles were understood. Now place this idea beside the teachings of Jesus. Love your enemies. Forgive those who harm you. Heal the sick. Comfort the suffering. Bless those who curse you. To a purely moral reader, these are ethical commands. But to a Tesla-inspired mind, they may also be read as instructions in resonance. If hatred is a destructive vibration, then love is an organizing one. If fear contracts the human spirit, compassion expands it. If cruelty spreads disorder through human relationships, forgiveness interrupts the circuit. If despair lowers the inner state of a person, hope raises it. This is not conventional physics. It is not something that can be carelessly presented as laboratory fact, but as a metaphor and perhaps as a psychological reality. It is difficult to ignore. Human beings affect one another. Emotion spreads, panic spreads, courage spreads, anger spreads, peace spreads. A crowd can become violent, or a crowd can become prayerful. A single voice can disturb a room, or calm it. A leader can tune the emotional frequency of an entire people. Tesla may have understood something others ignored. The invisible world is not empty. Every thought, every emotion, every act of kindness or cruelty enters the human field. And if many people share the same emotional current, it can become a wave. This is why collective prayer, collective grief, collective hope, and collective fear have always felt powerful to human beings. Whether one interprets them spiritually, psychologically, or energetically, they seem to move through people like electricity through a network. According to this theory, Jesus was not merely teaching morality. He was teaching humanity how to tune itself. Tesla did not see energy as something limited to machines. He saw energy everywhere in storms, rivers, sunlight, wind, magnetic fields, the human body, and perhaps even thought itself. This is why the healing stories surrounding Jesus may have fascinated him so deeply. If the body is animated by energy, if emotion affects physiology, if vibration and harmony influence matter, then spiritual healing becomes a question not of blind belief, but of hidden mechanism. In this interpretation, Jesus becomes a master of alignment, not a magician performing tricks for a crowd, but a figure who understood how faith, attention, compassion, and inner order could awaken something within the human being. The sick came to him not only for a cure, but for contact with a field of extraordinary certainty. He spoke with authority. He touched the untouchable. He forgave the condemned. He calmed the terrified. He restored identity to people who had been reduced to illness, shame, or despair. Even from a modern psychological perspective, this matters. The mind and body are not strangers. Fear changes the body. Stress changes the body. Hope changes the body. Love changes the body. Belief can influence pain, resilience, immune response, and recovery. That does not mean belief replaces medicine. It means the human being is more integrated than a purely mechanical model once assumed. Tesla's worldview, with its fascination for energy and vibration, gives this ancient idea a new language. He might have said that the human being is not merely flesh. The human being is a receiver, a transmitter, a resonant instrument. And the question is, tuned to what? If tuned to fear, the inner world becomes unstable. If tuned to hatred, the field becomes distorted. If tuned to love, compassion, and clarity, perhaps the system begins to reorganize. This is why Jesus' teachings on love and mercy become so significant in this interpretation. They are not only moral instructions, they are descriptions of alignment with the deepest order of the universe. To Tesla, the universe was not chaos. It was law. It was pattern. It was an immense mathematical harmony that humanity had barely begun to hear. And in that harmony, love may have been more than emotion. It may have been a force. Tesla's view of religion was not simple rejection. He did not fit comfortably into the categories people often use today: believer, skeptic, mystic, materialist. He was something stranger and more difficult. He was a scientific visionary who believed that reality was deeper than appearances, and that ancient spiritual traditions might contain symbolic truths that modern science had not yet translated. He did not need to treat the Bible as a literal, technical manual in order to find it meaningful. Instead, he could approach it as a layered text, part history, part morality, part mythology, part symbol, and perhaps part encrypted memory of ancient observation. This is where the relationship between science and religion becomes central. Many people imagine science and faith as two armies locked in permanent war. One side demands evidence, the other side demands reverence. One speaks in equations, the other speaks in parables. One studies matter, the other seeks meaning. But Tesla's mind resisted that separation. For him, science was a method for discovering the laws of reality. Religion, at its best, was a symbolic and ethical framework for understanding humanity's place within those laws. Science asked, "How does the universe work?" Spirituality asked, "What does it mean, and how should we live within it?" A complete human civilization may need both questions. Without science, spirituality can become superstition. Without meaning, science can become machinery without conscience. Tesla's life reveals this tension. He wanted to invent machines, but he also wanted those machines to serve humanity. He dreamed of free or abundant energy, not merely as a technical achievement, but as a moral revolution. He imagined power distributed across the world, not hoarded by the few. He believed nature contained enough energy for everyone, if only humanity learned to cooperate with its laws instead of exploiting them blindly. That is why his interpretation of sacred texts matters. When Tesla looked at ancient stories, he did not only ask, "Did this happen exactly as written?" He asked a deeper question. What law is hidden inside this symbol? The Bible begins with creation. In the beginning there is darkness, void, formlessness, and then command, light, separation, order, life. To a traditional reader, this is a sacred account of divine creation. To a symbolic reader, it is an image of meaning emerging from nothingness. To a Tesla-inspired scientific imagination, it may also resemble something else: the birth of order from chaos. Tesla was fascinated by order. He believed the universe was not random debris, but an organized system governed by discoverable principles. Matter, energy, vibration, and frequency did not behave without law. Even what appears chaotic may hide a deeper structure. In the biblical creation story, chaos is not meaningless. It is potential. It is the unformed state before pattern appears. This idea would have appealed to Tesla's mind. Every invention begins in a kind of darkness. Before the motor turns, before the coil sings, before the lamp glows, there is only possibility. Then comes the organizing principle, the design, the circuit, the rhythm, the command. Light appears. Not only physical light, but intelligibility. The world becomes readable. In this interpretation, the creation story is not reduced to physics. Rather, physics becomes another language through which the story can be contemplated. The movement from chaos to order echoes ideas that later science would explore in thermodynamics, entropy, complexity, and the evolution of structure in the universe. Stars form from clouds of gas. Crystals emerge from solution. Life organizes itself from chemistry. A mind forms patterns from sensation. A civilization rises from scattered human effort. Again and again, the universe appears to move through tension, disorder and order, darkness and light, potential and form. Tesla saw his own inventions in similar terms. Alternating current was not merely a practical system, it was rhythm disciplined into power. Wireless transmission was not merely a dream, it was the attempt to use the earth and atmosphere as part of a grand circuit. Every machine he imagined was an effort to uncover the hidden order already present in nature. So when he encountered biblical language about creation, he may have seen not a primitive myth, but a symbolic echo of the deepest scientific mystery. How does order arise? And if order arises everywhere, what is the source of that order? Tesla's scientific work can be understood as a lifelong pursuit of connection. He wanted to connect cities with electricity. He wanted to connect people with communication. He wanted to connect machines with natural forces. He wanted to connect Earth with atmosphere, matter with energy, body with vibration, and perhaps even reason with spirit. His dream of a world system was one of his most ambitious visions. He imagined a global network capable of transmitting information and perhaps energy wirelessly across vast distances. Long before the world became accustomed to wireless communication, Tesla imagined a planet linked by invisible waves. To modern ears, this sounds prophetic. But to Tesla, it was not magic. It was the logical extension of nature's hidden laws. If energy could move through space, if signals could travel invisibly, if the Earth itself could conduct, resonate, and respond, then the planet was not merely ground beneath our feet. It was part of the machine, perhaps even part of the message. This idea has a strangely spiritual dimension. The dream of universal access to energy is not just technological, it is ethical. Tesla imagined a civilization where power was no longer a privilege controlled by geography, wealth, or monopoly. He dreamed of abundance distributed across humanity. He believed that if people could draw clean energy from nature's own processes, sunlight, wind, water, atmospheric electricity, and perhaps deeper sources still unknown, then civilization might become less violent, less desperate, less divided. This is why his science often feels moral. He did not simply want brighter lamps, he wanted a brighter world. In this light, his reading of religious stories becomes more understandable. The Bible is full of images of provision: bread in the wilderness, water from stone, healing for the sick, light in darkness, deliverance from bondage. Tesla's technological dreams echo these ancient longings in modern form: energy for all, light for all, connection for all, freedom from scarcity. If this theory is even partly true, then Tesla did not see science as the enemy of the sacred. He saw it as one way of fulfilling the sacred obligation to uplift humanity. But his ideas went still further. He did not only look to the future, he looked backward, toward ancient knowledge. Tesla was fascinated by ancient wisdom. He suspected that older civilizations may have understood aspects of nature that modern humanity had forgotten or misunderstood. This does not mean that every legend is secretly advanced technology. It does not mean that every ancient story should be treated as a scientific report. But Tesla's style of thinking encourages a provocative possibility. Maybe ancient people encoded knowledge in myth. Maybe stories survived when instruments did not. Maybe symbols carried truths across centuries because equations would have been destroyed, misunderstood, or never written down. In this interpretation, religious texts become archives of metaphor. The Red Sea separating before Moses, the plagues of Egypt, the crossing of rivers, the survival of Noah through a catastrophic flood, the miracles of Jesus. To a conventional believer, these are acts of divine power. To a skeptic, they may be legends. To a Tesla-inspired interpreter, they become mysteries worth examining, events that may conceal natural phenomena, ancient engineering, psychological insight, or symbolic knowledge about survival, transformation, and energy. Consider the story of Noah's Ark. On the surface, it is a tale of judgment, flood, obedience, preservation, and renewal. But in Tesla's kind of imagination, the Ark might also symbolize technological preparation against natural catastrophe. It becomes not merely a boat, but a vessel of knowledge. It represents the human capacity to observe nature, anticipate disaster, and build according to law. Hydrodynamics, navigation, structural design, preservation of life, memory carried through destruction. The Ark in this reading is not only wood against water, it is intelligence against chaos. Whether or not one accepts such an interpretation, the symbolism is powerful. Ancient stories often preserve humanity's deepest fear, that nature can overwhelm civilization in a single terrible moment. Floods, storms, earthquakes, droughts, fires, these forces remind human beings that we do not command the world, we negotiate with it. Tesla understood this profoundly. He did not want to conquer nature by brute force. He wanted to listen to nature closely enough to cooperate with it. The same interpretive method can be applied to the story of Moses parting the Red Sea. To religious tradition, it is a miracle of deliverance. To a symbolic interpretation, it is the passage from bondage into freedom. To a scientific imagination, it raises questions about wind, tides, geography, seismic events, atmospheric pressure, and the possibility that rare natural phenomena can become sacred memory when witnessed at the right moment. Tesla's mind would not have been satisfied with simply saying, "impossible." He would have asked, what force was present? What conditions existed? What natural law might produce an event so extraordinary that an ancient people would remember it as divine intervention? This does not remove the spiritual meaning of the story. In fact, for some, it deepens it. If nature itself operates through law, then a rare natural event occurring at a decisive moment can feel no less mysterious. The question becomes not whether law exists, but whether humanity understands the full depth of law. The plagues of Egypt, too, may be read through multiple lenses: theological, symbolic, ecological, environmental, and historical. Water turning red, insects multiplying, disease spreading, darkness falling. These images can be interpreted as divine judgment, but they also resemble cascading natural disruptions. Again, the point is not to declare a final answer. The mystery remains. The deeper point is Tesla's method. Do not laugh at ancient stories too quickly. Do not flatten them into superstition. Do not strip them of spiritual meaning. But also do not be afraid to ask whether they preserve memories of natural forces humanity once witnessed but could not explain. This is where Tesla's worldview becomes haunting. He suggests that modern man may be arrogant. We think we are the first to understand anything. But perhaps the ancients understood certain things in symbolic form that we have only recently begun to measure. Perhaps the past is not silent. Perhaps it is transmitting. And we are only now building the receiver. Jesus, in this Tesla-inspired interpretation, stands at the most powerful intersection of science, spirituality, morality, and mystery. Tesla may have admired Jesus not only as a religious figure, but as a being whose life demonstrated harmony with the deepest principles of existence. The miracles attributed to Jesus' healing, transformation, walking on water, calming storms, multiplying food, turning water into wine become, in this view, not random supernatural displays, but signs of mastery over laws unknown or poorly understood. One interpretation suggests that Jesus' healing miracles could be understood as acts of energetic restoration. The body, seen as an electrical and vibrational system, is brought back into harmony. The afflicted person does not merely receive treatment, they are retuned. Another interpretation looks at Jesus walking on water and imagines unknown principles involving force, balance, density, surface tension, or even fields of energy. This does not mean such an event has been scientifically explained. It has not. But Tesla's way of thinking invites us to ask how many things once thought impossible became real once humanity discovered the correct principle. Flight was impossible until lift was understood. Wireless communication was impossible until invisible waves were harnessed. Electric light was impossible until current and resistance were mastered. The impossible often waits behind ignorance. The miracle of turning water into wine becomes, in this speculative framework, a symbol of transformation. Matter changes state. Energy reorganizes structure. One form becomes another. Ancient language calls it miracle. Modern science might speak of chemistry, molecular arrangement, catalysis, and energy exchange, though no ordinary scientific explanation accounts for the biblical event as described. Still, the symbol remains extraordinary. Transformation is one of the central laws of the universe. Stars transform hydrogen into heavier elements. Plants transform sunlight into life. The body transforms food into motion, thought, and heat. Suffering can transform into compassion. Fear can transform into faith. Death, in religious imagination, can transform into resurrection. Tesla was obsessed with transformation, especially the transformation of energy from one form to another, mechanical energy into electrical energy, alternating currents into rotating magnetic fields, natural forces into usable power. invisible oscillations into visible effects. So perhaps he saw in Jesus the supreme symbol of transformation, not only of matter, but of humanity itself. The teachings of Jesus may have mattered to Tesla even more than the miracles, because miracles amaze the eye. But teachings alter the inner structure of civilization. Jesus taught love, mercy, humility, forgiveness, compassion, self-sacrifice, and the dignity of the poor, the sick, the rejected, and the forgotten. These are usually discussed as moral or religious principles. But Tesla's worldview invites a more mysterious reading. What if love is not merely a feeling? What if compassion is not merely a virtue? What if forgiveness is not merely a social act, but a release of destructive energy? Every human being knows that anger has force. Hatred can consume the body. Fear can paralyze the mind. Shame can bend a life out of shape. Envy can poison a community. But love, courage, gratitude, and forgiveness also have force. They can reorganize a person's life. They can repair relationships. They can calm the nervous system. They can restore meaning. In this sense, Jesus' moral teachings can be read as instructions for energetic civilization. A society based on hatred generates conflict. A society based on greed generates scarcity, even in abundance. A society based on fear generates obedience without wisdom. A society based on compassion generates healing. Tesla, who dreamed of giving energy freely to the world, may have recognized in Jesus a similar impulse, the distribution of life, light, and power without domination. There is a profound parallel here. Tesla wanted to free electricity from wires. Jesus wanted to free the human spirit from fear. Tesla wanted power to move invisibly across the earth. Jesus taught that love, too, moves invisibly from person to person. Tesla believed resonance could amplify force. Jesus taught that faith, even small, could move mountains, an image not of mechanical engineering, but of inner power magnified beyond ordinary expectation. One speaks in coils and currents. The other speaks in parables and prayer, but both point toward the unseen. Tesla's fascination with numbers adds another layer to the mystery. Among the many legends surrounding him, none is more famous than the idea that he gave special importance to the numbers 3, 6, and 9. Whether modern culture has exaggerated this fascination or not, these numbers have become inseparable from the mythic image of Tesla as a man who believed mathematics was not merely a tool, but a gateway into the structure of reality. In this interpretation, 3, 6, and 9 are not just digits. They are symbols of harmony, balance, and cosmic architecture. 3 appears everywhere: beginning, middle, end, past, present, future, body, mind, spirit, birth, life, death, space in 3 dimensions. Many religious traditions also preserve sacred triads, suggesting that human consciousness naturally sees deep significance in patterns of 3. 6 can suggest completion, structure, balance, and geometry. The hexagon appears in honeycombs, crystals, and natural formations. It is one of nature's efficient patterns, a sign that geometry is not an invention of the human mind, but a language already written into the world. 9, as the completion of the single digits, often appears symbolically as culmination, closure, return, and hidden arithmetic symmetry. In numerological traditions, 9 carries associations with completion and cosmic order. Tesla's interest in such patterns reflects his broader conviction: reality is mathematical. The universe is not a random storm of matter. It is structured. It has rhythm. It can be counted, measured, tuned, and perhaps even spiritually contemplated through number. This is why some interpreters connect Tesla's thought with ancient sacred geometry, biblical symbolism, and the mathematical patterns hidden in nature. They believe that the same intelligence that shapes crystals, planets, waves, and biological forms may also appear symbolically in ancient texts. This does not prove that the Bible is a scientific codebook, but it does raise an intriguing possibility. Perhaps numbers, symbols, myths, and natural laws all emerge from the same human attempt to understand the invisible order beneath reality. Tesla searched for that order with machines. Ancient prophets searched for it with visions. Mathematicians search for it with equations. Mystics search for it in silence. And perhaps all of them are listening to different octaves of the same cosmic music. Tesla was not alone in believing that numbers and patterns might reveal hidden laws. Other inventors, researchers, and unconventional thinkers also explored numerical structures in nature, the periodic table, magnetism, fields, and geometry. Some proposed that if the elements of reality were arranged in the correct order, deeper relationships would become visible. Some believed that conventional two-dimensional mathematics could not fully describe the living complexity of a three-dimensional universe. One such idea suggests that magnetic force should not be imagined as a flat diagram, but as a dynamic structure radiating through space. A magnet is not merely a north pole and a south pole drawn on paper. It is a field. It curves. It loops. It penetrates space invisibly. It organizes matter without touching it. Tesla understood the inadequacy of ordinary perception. Human beings see surfaces. Nature works through fields. We draw straight lines. Nature moves through spirals, waves, vortices, and resonances. We reduce reality to equations. Nature unfolds in dimensions we struggle to visualize. This is why Tesla's imagination remains so compelling. He lived at the edge of measurable science, but he constantly sensed that measurement had not reached the bottom of reality. He knew that a two-dimensional diagram could explain only so much. To understand electricity, magnetism, and vibration, one had to think dynamically. A current is not a line. A field is not a picture. A wave is not a metaphor. The universe is not a page. It is motion in depth. This dynamic view also influenced the way Tesla-inspired interpretations approach scripture. If ancient stories are read flatly, they may appear impossible, childish, or primitive. But if they are read symbolically, dimensionally, and energetically, they begin to open. The Red Sea becomes more than water. Noah's Ark becomes more than a boat. Creation becomes more than a beginning. Jesus' miracles become more than spectacle. They become symbols of law, transformation, survival, harmony, and awakening. The ancient text becomes a field, and the reader becomes the receiver. To understand the depth of this mystery, we must return to Tesla's great obsession, nature as the ultimate source of power. Tesla believed that humanity's greatest mistake was not ignorance alone, but disconnection. We separated ourselves from the very forces that sustain us. We burned, extracted, consumed, and destroyed, while nature quietly offered sunlight, wind, water, gravity, atmospheric electricity, and perhaps deeper reservoirs of energy hidden in the fabric of reality. He imagined energy sources so abundant that scarcity itself might one day seem like a primitive condition. One idea often associated with visionary energy speculation is zero-point energy, the concept that even empty space may possess underlying energy. In modern physics, the vacuum is not a simple nothing, though practical extraction of usable energy from it remains highly speculative and unproven. Tesla's own language belonged to a different era, but the dream is similar, that space itself may not be empty, and that nature may contain power humanity has barely begun to understand. For Tesla, such a possibility would not have been merely technological. It would have been moral. If clean, abundant energy could be accessed, then poverty might be reduced, labor might be transformed, war over resources might become less necessary, human creativity might expand, the planet might be preserved instead of consumed. This is why Tesla's energy dreams carry a religious intensity. He was not only building machines, he was imagining redemption through power rightly understood. The Bible, too, is filled with the drama of power, power misused, power surrendered, power given, power hidden in weakness, power revealed through humility. Pharaoh's power enslaves, Moses' power liberates. Jesus rejects domination and chooses sacrificial love. The kingdom he describes is not built by force, but by transformation from within. Tesla's dream of energy for humanity echoes this moral pattern. Power must not merely be possessed, it must be harmonized with conscience. Otherwise, the same electricity that lights a city can also become a weapon. The same science that heals can destroy. The same knowledge that frees can enslave. This may be the deepest warning in the Tesla-inspired reading of the Bible. Humanity is always seeking power before wisdom, and that may be why the greatest secrets remain hidden. Tesla's life was filled with brilliance, but also tragedy. He was celebrated, misunderstood, exploited, admired, dismissed, mythologized, and left in his later years increasingly isolated. Some of his ideas were too ambitious for the financial systems of his time. Some were technically incomplete. Some were visionary but impractical. Some may have been misunderstood even by those who claimed to follow him. And yet, his image has only grown stronger. Why? Because Tesla represents something modern civilization desperately needs, the belief that science can still be wondrous. In an age of devices, algorithms, and endless noise, Tesla reminds us that technology was once connected to awe. A coil throwing lightning across a dark room was not merely a demonstration, it was a glimpse into the invisible skeleton of the world. That same sense of awe is necessary when approaching ancient texts. If we read the Bible only as literal history, we may miss its symbolic depth. If we read it only as myth, we may miss its spiritual force. If we read it only as superstition, we may miss the possibility that ancient minds preserved observations in poetic form. And if we read it only through modern arrogance, we may miss the fact that mystery itself can be a form of knowledge. Tesla's imagined approach asks us to stand between worlds, not gullible, not cynical, not careless with evidence, but open. Open to the idea that ancient people were not fools. Open to the possibility that spiritual language may encode psychological and natural truths. Open to the recognition that science has not answered every question. Open to the possibility that Jesus' teachings about love and forgiveness may describe not only how to be good, but how to live in alignment with the deepest structure of existence. Open to the idea that the universe may be more connected, more musical, more mathematical, and more alive with energy than our ordinary senses reveal. This is not a demand for blind belief. It is an invitation to deeper inquiry. The most haunting part of this entire mystery is not whether Tesla literally decoded the Bible. The haunting part is that his worldview makes us ask questions we thought we had outgrown. What is a miracle? Is it a violation of natural law? Or is it the appearance of a law not yet understood? What is prayer? Is it only speech directed toward heaven? Or can it also be a tuning of the human mind, body, and community toward a higher order? What is faith? Is it irrational belief? Or is it the inner alignment that allows a person to act in harmony with possibilities not yet visible? What is love? Is it merely emotion? Or is it the most powerful organizing principle in human life? Tesla's machines worked because they obeyed law. Current, voltage, resistance, induction, resonance, none of these yielded to wishful thinking. They required discipline, observation, precision, and sacrifice. But Jesus' teachings also required discipline. Forgiveness is not sentimental. Compassion is not weak. Love of enemies is not easy. Faith under suffering is not childish. These are inner technologies of the human soul. They transform the one who practices them. And if human beings are energetic, biological, emotional, and spiritual systems, then perhaps moral teachings are not arbitrary rules. Perhaps they are operating instructions. Tesla wanted humanity to understand electricity so that civilization could be transformed. Jesus wanted humanity to understand love so that the heart could be transformed. One transformation lights the world from the outside, the other lights it from within, and perhaps the true mystery is that humanity has always needed both. There is no final proof that Tesla uncovered a terrifying secret behind Jesus and the Bible. There is no responsible way to claim that every miracle was advanced science, every parable was hidden physics, or every ancient story was a coded technological record. But there is a mystery that remains difficult to ignore. Tesla's life reveals a mind that saw unity where others saw separation. He saw electricity and magnetism as invisible architecture. He saw resonance as a key to power. He saw nature as a living reservoir. He saw humanity as capable of receiving, transmitting, and transforming energy. He saw ancient wisdom not as something to discard, but as something to examine with reverence and intelligence. And when that kind of mind turns toward the Bible, the text begins to glow differently. Creation becomes the emergence of order from potential. Noah's Ark becomes survival through knowledge. Moses and the Red Sea become the mystery of nature, acting at the edge of human understanding. Jesus' healings become images of harmony restored. Water into wine becomes transformation. Walking on water becomes mastery over conditions unknown. Love becomes resonance. Forgiveness becomes release. Faith becomes alignment. Prayer becomes transmission. And the human being becomes what Tesla always suspected it might be, a living instrument inside a vast cosmic field. Perhaps this is why Tesla continues to fascinate us. He does not simply belong to the past. He stands like a signal tower between ages, between religion and science, matter and spirit, machine and miracle, earth and cosmos. He warns us that the invisible world is more powerful than we think. Invisible currents light our cities. Invisible waves carry our voices. Invisible fields guide our instruments. Invisible emotions shape our lives. Invisible beliefs build or destroy civilizations. And if the universe is truly woven from energy, vibration, frequency, and order, then the ancient command to love one another may be far more than a moral suggestion. It may be a law of survival. Tesla searched for the hidden current beneath reality. Jesus spoke of the hidden kingdom within. One used experiments. The other used parables. And somewhere between the lightning in Tesla's laboratory and the words preserved in Scripture, a question still waits in the dark. What if humanity has not yet misunderstood science because it lacked religion, and has not yet misunderstood religion because it lacked science, but because it forgot that both were born from the same ancient hunger to understand the light?